Welcome to Education RX. The education system in the U.S. is sick, and we all need to find ways to heal it. I'm Hollye Bronson.
I'm Shannon and Hollye. So today we are talking to Paige Edmonds, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what you do and who you are and why you're kind of passionate about your expertise?
Of course. First of all, thank you for having me. So I am what I call a functional nutritionist. So I have training in functional medicine, and there are many different types of nutritionists out there. So where my passions really are is more in like the naturopathic, the holistic, the functional medicine side of things. So I'm also a health coach. I'm a holistic health coach. My background is I have a master's in human nutrition, and then my undergrad degree is in community health education with an emphasis on nutrition as well. And so a couple of years ago, I had gotten connected with Dr. Mindy Pelz, and that's how I believe Hollye found me. And really, I was really driven by her education. She was teaching things that I'm like, no other doctors are really speaking about. And this was around women's health and women's hormones and how women need to be doing things differently. Women aren't little men. And so I was really like, wow, I actually saw her on Instagram. And I'm like, I love what she's promoting. So we got connected, and I started helping her out with her consultations. At that time, she had no health coaches. She was starting to get too big to do any one-on-one consultations, and she knew that was lacking in the company. So I had started on board doing primarily Dutch test consultations. That's a hormone panel. I would do gut type of testing, toxicity testing. Anyone could purchase a nutrition consultation with us, general health consultations. So once that started really growing, then I helped her out she has got 2 programs. So we have our Reset Academy program, and that's really designed to bring community together and to educate, empower women and men. We're attracting more men now, all about their hormones. We really want to teach you how your hormones dictate everything. I mean, they really control your quality of life, how you feel, your outlook on life. And so there's certain ways that you should be eating and exercising, and your lifestyle should be a certain way as your hormones are shifting through life. So that's really what the Reset Academy is designed to do, is to have that education, that community, that support. And then we do have a separate program. It's called our Thrive program. I help lead that. And that's our one-on-one health coaching. It's primarily a detoxification program. So that's where my passions really are currently. I mean, I love it all. I got into this field as most people with their pain to purpose story. So I have a history of thyroid stuff and different hormonal stuff myself. And really I love it all. I love nutrition. I love hormones. I love gut health. I love helping people learn how to detox and understand the importance of that. So that's where I'm at currently.
I can relate to this right now. I am currently doing the whole detox program with a nutritionist here where I live in Durango. I don't know if it's amazing, but it's going.
Yeah, it can be tough. One of the best things that we provide is unlimited support. So we actually do weekly meetings as the group, and they're about an hour. So Dr. Mindy or we switch off weeks. We'll educate on a topic. Usually it revolves around toxicity of some sort. And then we open it up for questions. And so you can actually unmute yourself. But we keep the group really small on purpose so that you can get to know the people you're detoxing with. So you have that support. You can hear everyone's stories, their wins, their struggles. And then I email them in between, and then we meet monthly one-on-one. And so I get emails all the time, and it's like, today is not a good day. And then part of my job is to be like, hang in there. Detoxing is not supposed to be fun all the time. Oftentimes I have to make alternatives though, or like slow things down or change it, because everybody is so different with detoxing. that it can be tricky to find. I always say you've got to find your groove with it to have it like to make it seem bearable. So if you're not in your groove right now, my heart goes out to you because it's not fun.
No, I actually am. It's a little up and down, just like you're saying. Yeah, the first 2 days went great, and then like the third day, I was like, oh, I just want something with sugar. I want to taste something more. I need sweetness, and now I'm good again. So I think it'll be like that. It's been, I think I started Monday, so
awesome. So it's almost been a week.
So it's Friday, yeah. Monday will be a week.
How long did it last, Shannon?
Well, for this particular nutritionist, it's 2 weeks of detox. And then then we slowly add some, I don't know. It's 2 weeks of very strict kind of.
You can do anything for 2 weeks.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, you're already 5 days into it.
I feel like I derailed the interview, sorry.
No, that's good.
No, it's one of my passions.
A lot of people are thinking, why would we ask Paige to come on to a podcast about education? There's a lot of misunderstanding about nutrition. There's a lot of misunderstanding about how it impacts our life. And there's just the toxicity of things, not just in food, but in our environment, including our clothes and our cleaning supplies and laundry detergents and all those things, and how that actually is impacting our students as well as the adults that are trying to teach them. And so that's part of why we asked Paige to come on, not because we're trying to lecture people about diet and eating healthy, but we're trying to give them good information that might help make their lives better. So that was why we decided to invite Paige to come on, because we are both nutrition people, like that we're always trying to figure out how to eat healthier and do things better, because we want to be able to be focused. We want to be able to be active. And it's such a big part of that.
And it's so important I think about even just when a woman is pregnant, that's really where nutrition starts, is in the womb. And then even from the moment of when you're a baby up until puberty and on, it's such an important impact that if we can feed our kids healthy early in life, that actually dictates their health later in life. You're setting your child up for their health down the road by implementing those healthy practices. So I'm very passionate about that, because it does start with the children. It does.
In a lot of ways, as Americans, we don't take time to slow down and really look at the impact, everything, including cost, right? So when we don't take care of ourselves now, what does that cost to our nation down the line for medical expenses and care for people who are elderly and unhealthy? And I mean, there's just so much that goes into that. And it starts with children. And I think that's one thing that people miss. And sometimes, I don't have a kid in school, or I'm not an educator, so I don't really care about, listening about education, but it impacts us all, because it starts with kids, and those kids grow up and they're running the country. And so we really all need to be a little invested in what's going on there.
Exactly. And I always like to tell people, you have nothing without your health. You really don't. And so you do need to prioritize it. And I know it can be daunting. There's so much information out there, especially in the nutrition world, that it can be overwhelming. And like, where do I even begin? One person says eat eggs, one person says don't eat eggs. Right. It's so confusing. I find that you have to start somewhere, and you have to put a focus on it, because without your health, you really don't have anything. So that's where I really shine too, is I want to make healthy eating accessible to people and make it easy enough for people where they don't feel like they have to give up because they just don't know what to do.
Also make it fun. Like,
it's fun.
I love food. I love to eat. I love food. And so I want to be able to eat healthy and balanced, because there are some things that I'm just going to cheat for because I love it. I am working my way through Dr. Pelz's book, Fast Like a Girl. A lot of people ask me, because I am sort of a late night person, so I don't start eating till late in the day. I do a lot of working with kids, and so I'm really busy in the first part of the day, and usually around 1:30 or 2, I have time to go to the gym, and I usually go to the gym then. because it's not as busy. Most people aren't there right then. And then I start eating when I come back. I usually eat really high protein right when I come back from the gym because she told me to and explained why, which is good rationale. But then I eat till kind of later in the day, and that just works for me. A lot of people ask, oh my gosh, how do you do that? I said, I can still have coffee in the morning, and that makes it doable because I am definitely a coffee girl.
Yeah, it sure does. And you have to find what works for your lifestyle and for your hormones. So that's something that I'd help people with too, is how do you fit this for your life? You have to be able, it has to be sustainable ultimately.
Yeah. When I called you to talk about potentially coming on the show, we got into a conversation. You were talking to me about your graduate degree and how you did a program where you went into schools and we're working with the schools to kind of figure out some ways to get kids more involved in eating healthier. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's a really cool thing.
Anyone that's listening that lives in Wisconsin or is familiar with Wisconsin, it was in La Crosse area. And so I was working on a grant project where we were funded to go and bring gardens into schools. So we actually took the students out. We would go into the classroom, we would educate them. We brought them the seeds and the soil, and we had like a little curriculum about it. And then we all got to bring our little starters out to the garden. So they had a huge space. These were in elementary schools. And they got to plant it. They got to the teachers. We helped the teachers figure out with their curriculum, how can we watch these plants grow? Because ultimately, kids just need to be involved. The more they are involved, the more they're going to be excited about food, excited about healthy eating. So if they can see their plant starting to grow into, let's say, spinach, they're more likely to eat that spinach when it's served on their plate. So then we also worked with coming up with recipes based on what we grew in the garden to help the lunch ladies come up with menu plans. So they would literally get the food from the garden. And I don't remember how it worked. This was during the school year. I don't know who upkept it in the summer, because that's in Wisconsin. That's the primary time we can get that fresh produce. But it was such an empowering program to be able to watch these kids get excited. And then I also tried to tell them, bring this to your parents. Can you ask your parents to grow a garden? Can you ask your parents to do some window gardening? I mean, even in the wintertime, you can grow things in the window. And now they even have cool things where you can, I think it's called like aquaponics. I forget what my machine is called, where you can grow with light and water, and it can be indoors even when it's cold out. So yeah, that was really, really fun in college. And then at one point, we got to cook for them. So we took what the garden was going to eventually have in it and came up with some recipes, cooked it, and then got to watch them try it and have them interact with the whole process.
And you came up with some of those things earlier in your life with a family member.
I sure did. So I am the oldest of four. Me and the youngest were 15 years apart. He was not planned. He was the biggest blessing. But it's a big age range. And so what was nice for my parents is that with me being, I had just turned 16 when he was born. So I was able to drive and babysit, and we got really close. Me and the youngest got really close. And then when I would come home from college, I nannied our neighbor. And I also brought him with me, and I nannied him for the summers too. And my job was to clean and cook and grocery shop. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I got to have him come along. And at this time I was studying nutrition. So I was very passionate about the power of food, especially on a growing child. He must have been 5 or 6 at the time. I don't remember exactly. And so what was so fascinating to me is that my family, my other siblings, we would joke that they had such bad sweet tooths, and they do. And I mean, who doesn't? We all do. We all love sugar, right? And so when my parents would feed him, he would ask for, let's say, cereal or pancakes, more of the sugary stuff. Mm-hmm. Even with like dinners, it would be more of the processed carbohydrates, the pastas, the mac and cheese, the frozen foods. Whereas when I was meal planning and cooking, and I was involving him in the grocery shopping and in the meal prep, he would be so excited. I remember a specific time, and he even remembers it to this day. He picked out turnips. So I said, pick out any vegetable you want. We'll go home, we'll look up how you prepare this food. We'll prepare it and we'll try it. And I don't know if he learned about a turnip on a show or if it looked cool, whatever it was, but he picked turnips. We prepared it and he didn't like it. He finished it though. He finished his plate. And I think it was because he got to pick out this turnip and he was excited to try it. Yeah. It wasn't his favorite, but he was motivated to finish it because he was so involved with that process. And I find that's very important for other parents too. Get your kids involved, give them the choice, give them the power to add things to the grocery list that you might be surprised about.
That is really great advice. One of the things that I know Dr. Pelz and her whole organization focuses on, and that you have a lot of information about, is how diet is impacting students. Our concern a lot is focused on educationally, but right now in education across the nation, and I think it's not just in schools, we're all experiencing this. And it wasn't just caused by COVID. It is something that's been on the rise even before COVID. It just kind of amped up and became more evident after COVID. Younger and younger people all across the country, but including young people, are really struggling with mental health and behavioral issues. And I think a lot of people miss the fact that some of that is deeply impacted by our environment and especially by food.
We know through research that there are certain food ingredients that are going to affect your mental health, whether that's depression, whether that's focus, whether that's behavioral issues. We know that certain preservatives, food additives, food colors, they dramatically affect behavior. We also know that most gluten in this country, it causes something called intestinal permeability, or a lot of people know it as leaky gut. And once there's some intestinal permeability or leaky gut, we say leaky gut, leaky brain. We know there's a connection between consuming gluten and depression, between consuming gluten and ADHD. So there are these food ingredients that do play a big role in the mood, the focus, behavior. Sugar. I mean, we get such a high from sugar. We get that bliss point. It's great. But then we crash. What happens when we crash? We've all been there. We get hangry, we get irritable, we get moody. And I don't think people truly realize how much sugar is in our food. Even if you're not consuming sugar, like a slice of bread will convert to about a quarter cup of sugar in your bloodstream. That's one slice.
And what about if it's whole wheat? Because people are going to say, but I eat whole wheat.
Yeah, so it's technically a tiny bit better, but it still converts to sugar. It's still gluten. It's still grain. We have such a problem now in our country with how we are growing grain that it is very inflammatory for many people, including children. And there's no coincidence between gluten sensitivity on the rise and how our farming practices have changed. So it really, whole grain, unfortunately, is not always better. And I guess it depends on the type of grain, but like quinoa would be a better choice than a whole grain piece of bread. And even then, that's still a lot of carbohydrates. Most of us consume way too many carbohydrates. Carbohydrates convert to sugar. Some convert quicker, some convert slower, but ultimately it will convert to sugar in the body.
Shannon just went overseas and she really felt the difference in the wheat and grain products there, huh, Shannon?
Yeah, I was in Italy for 18 days, something like that. And so the food was amazing. There was a lot of bread consumed, doughs and like pizza and sandwiches, but it's very different, not necessarily different consistency, but it's just, I feel like maybe my body processed it differently or something along those lines. It really didn't have the same impact as when I eat a lot here.
And was the taste different at all? Did it taste better, worse, no difference?
Well, I mean, it must have been better because I think all of the food I had in Italy was amazing, right? I didn't have anything that didn't taste good.
Yeah.
So, and walking through the grocery stores there were really different than walking through grocery stores here. So I got to see that too, because I was there for so long. I did a little bit of shopping and not just all eating in restaurants. So everything tasted amazing. So yes, I would say that's probably true.
How did they look different? How did the grocery stores look different?
They don't have a lot of the same foods with preservatives in them. There's apparently there's a lot of preservatives that we use in the US that are not allowed in the EU. So I think that's maybe one of the biggest issues, but it was just super easy to, like, when you first walk in, there's like all this fruit usually, and it's super easy to grab, and then you walk around and there's these big counters of cheese and meat and that kind of stuff. So it was easier shopping, and they just didn't have like rows and rows of processed food.
Yeah, most of the grocery stores in the United States, I think it's 75% is ultra processed, highly packaged foods. So you're only able to get about 25% fresh produce, fresh meat, fresh dairy. It's going to be easier to reach for that when it's 3/4 of the store.
Yeah.
I get it. Like, I was a single mom when I was younger and on a tight budget because I was putting myself through school and some of those things. So I get that families are trying to feed their kids and it's expensive and there's time issues. And I understand all of those things, but I think it's kind of on us as the US. Why are we making it that that's what people can afford? Why can people only afford ultra processed food when we see that there's long-term repercussions that will make us a weaker nation, will make us a less healthy nation? It breaks my heart. And what we're doing to wheat, and I hate to sound like, paranoid or whatever, but it's true. All the Roundup that is GMO'd into our wheat. Would you really give your kid a plate with Roundup on it, spritz their food with it? You wouldn't, but people don't realize that's actually in our grain.
Well, and the World Health Organization recently came out stating that glyphosate, which is the Roundup, the pesticide they spray on genetically modified crops, it is a possible, highly probable human carcinogenic. So that means that it's very likely that it causes cancer in humans. And I think the reason they can't declare it as absolute yet is it really hasn't been around that long. I believe it was 80s or 90s. Don't quote me on that date, that we really started using it. So we don't have super long-term research on it yet, which is very frightening to me. And going back to the preservatives and the ingredients that aren't allowed in the EU, but they're allowed here, it's because in other countries, you're not allowed to use ingredients until they are tested as safe. The United States doesn't ban ingredients until they're tested harmful. Yeah. It's just so counterintuitive. It really is.
And we like to go around the world. We're the best country. I'm like, are we though? Do we have things to learn? And it's funny because as parents or as just people here in the United States, we see that in our country, childhood obesity is on the rise, diabetes, cancer, ADHD, mental health issues like anxiety and depression, behavioral issues, they're all on the rise. I mean, we have to know that is linked to some of the practices we have, including what we put into our environment and especially into our bodies.
Yeah, it is estimated that about 20% of our kids are obese, not just overweight, but obese. And 1 in 3 adults in this country are obese. It's trending towards 1 in 2. So it's really a big problem. And speaking on the topic of the role of food and diet and puberty and development, is that we're seeing that if kids are obese from when they're younger, they're more likely to go through puberty at an earlier age.
Wow.
When they go through puberty at an earlier age, that sets them up for hormonal issues later in life, like PCOS, endometriosis, infertility. And even as I alluded to earlier about how hormones dictate everything, your hormones dictate your mood, your energy, your sleep, your quality of life, your outlook on life, how much joy you can actually extract from this life. So it's really concerning that we're seeing kids going through puberty early because it's not a genetic thing. I mean, there's rare instances where there's genetics involved, but it's diet and it's environmental toxins. And if we don't start changing that now, my concern is that the whole trajectory is going to change. Girls aren't supposed to go through puberty until about 10 to 13. We're seeing it happening around 8 or 9. Is that going to get younger? Is that whole cohort going to change to, oh, now everyone's going through puberty at 8 or 9? And it really is concerning knowing what I know about women's hormones, because I primarily work with women in their 40s to 60s. I know it starts when you're young.
Does the research show that that's happening across the world or just in certain areas?
That's a great question. I have yet to look that up, but I will be looking into that. I do believe that in the United States, we have more children that are obese, but the toxicity issue it's worldwide. We now live in the most toxic times of human history, and that's not just in the United States.
Yeah.
That's everywhere. So I think it kind of depends what's the root cause of the precocious puberty. Precocious puberty is when you go through puberty younger than what's considered normal. But yeah, that's a great question.
We may not have all the answers. We're looking for people who have a piece of the solution puzzle.
It takes all of us to turn things around.
This is Education RX.
And I wonder, like third world countries, if it's really bad there as well, again, because cost, and accessibility to cleaner products. If you're struggling financially as a country, it may be a place where those things are more accessible. And looking at what the USDA has required for schools in providing meals, they are very loose in saying fruit, but it can be canned fruit. It can be, whatever. And we see a lot of times for the cost per serving and storability and prep time that usually they use canned, which is a processed type of fruit, which then heightens the amount of sugar, right? And what other things are in there?
Yep. And it's nutrient depleted. It really is. A better option would be, can you use more frozen vegetables? I don't know what their freezer spaces are like.
Right.
They freeze fresh produce at peak amount of nutrient status, and that preserves the produce. So a frozen item is going to be much better than a canned, and that's going to last a long time as well. So that would be a very easy swap, in my opinion.
Right? When we look at school lunches around the world, countries like Finland, they made a choice to provide 100% of students with free breakfast and lunch. And they did that to kind of reduce the amount of stigma around getting that so that all kids would eat, because the kids who were getting free and reduced weren't eating because they felt like a stigma with that. And I appreciate that. I think that is really powerful. And that's something that maybe we should consider. I know New York just started doing that. 100% of students can have free breakfast and lunch. It doesn't matter. You don't have to apply for it. Everybody can have it. I think that's great. But then we have to look at what they're serving kids in other countries like Finland, like Japan, in France or Italy, and they're giving them real meals. They're not ultra processed meals. And I think that is the part that makes the difference. Yes, we should be providing meals for every kid. I personally think, maybe we could get rid of standardized testing and take that $2 billion and put it into food. But nobody asked me what I think. I'm just throwing it out there. But if we did put money into food, could we provide all students free breakfast, free lunch, and give them something good? And what would be the hurdles to that? I have no idea. But understanding why it's important, I think, is the first step. And for families to understand, if you're still packing lunch and you can do that, what can they pack? What is a good thing for them to pack for snacks for a lunchtime so that the kids have stamina for the whole day? What does that look like?
Yeah. So the very first thing I think about is protein. And before I lose this train of thought, it's really interesting that in America, we have our kid foods. We have our kid menus. We have our chicken nuggets and our finger foods. They don't have that in other countries. So why do we have kid foods? Why can't kids just eat what adults eat? And that's what they can serve at lunches. Because I'm sure you've seen the pictures of the plates where each country shows what they're feeding their kids at school. And it really is pathetic when you look at the school lunches in America. And it's very highly processed packaged kid foods. But if you are able to send your kid with a lunch, then I personally would say you have to think of protein first. So protein, it is the most satiating. It is going to help with your blood sugar regulation, which is critical for focus, for energy, for development. You need to have a balanced blood sugar, and protein and healthy fats are the way to go about that. So I always try to think, okay, well, could you pack, I try to look for nitrate-free, sugar-free turkey sticks, chicken sticks, beef sticks. Can you pack deli meat that's also free of nitrates and sugar? So my brother, who now is 16, he will pack chicken breast for lunch. He will make his own chicken breast and pack it for lunch. You don't hardly see that, do you? That's a very easy option, packing the leftovers. I know that the tricky thing is if it needs to be reheated. Each school is a little different. I think some schools have access to a microwave, others may not allow their students that. But even just packing the leftovers, but protein first is critical. And then I think about healthy fats next. So does your kid like nut butters or seeds? Pistachios, pumpkin seeds are great. Could you make like a homemade trail mix where you do some raw nuts and seeds? If your child likes coconut, I love coconut flakes. Coconut flakes, unsweetened, not the ones with all the sugar. They're full of fiber, full of antioxidants, full of healthy fats. These healthy fats are critical for our brain. Our brain is about 60% fat. We need fat for our brain and for development. Does your kid like guacamole? I mean, they've got these, I love the Holy Guacamole company where they do like those single serve guacamole. Super easy to break up or to open up and have a great serving of healthy fats in there. Trying to think about, olives. And I know some of these foods are foods your kids may not eat, but they may love them. Maybe you do some deli meat with some olives and pickles. I mean, that combination is great with some nuts and seeds. If you are going to have some sort of starch, can you do something that has a lot of fiber in it? They have a lot of different healthier crackers now that are more nut-based. If your kid doesn't have an allergy, they have crackers that are more rice-based. That's going to be a little bit better. They now have different tortillas that are gluten-free, that are made with cassava. I don't know if you guys have ever tried cassava wraps. They're so tasty, and cassava is actually a prebiotic. So a prebiotic type of food is an amazing gut food. Going back to that leaky gut concept from earlier, we really have to start to repair all of our guts. I think all of us have leaky gut to some degree. And so one of the ways to do that is by feeding the good bacteria in your gut. We all talk about probiotics, right? We hear about the probiotics, the capsules, the yogurts, the kombucha, but we don't talk enough about the prebiotics. We can't keep the probiotics alive unless we're eating prebiotics. So back to the cassava, that's a great prebiotic. So you could do a wrap. There's cassava crackers and chips. So there are options. Unfortunately, it's more expensive for those packaged foods that are healthier. So can you go back to what's more natural and whole? Have your nuts, have your seeds, have a piece of fruit, have some meat. That's kind of how I would think about it. What is in the most natural whole form that you can find? rather than very packaged and processed. That's what I would personally do.
A lot of people don't consider fish and shrimp and things like that. And maybe you can't pack those because we know that those spoil faster, but at least at home, you could be offering those with omega oils in them. I know I'm a big fish eater. I love fish. Not everybody likes it, but I love fish. And it is so great for your skin, for your hair, for your brain. It's so wonderful.
For growth and development. And one thing, I mean, for you mentioned being a single mom, or for busy moms who don't have time to prep fish, you can find pretty decent wild caught canned fish. I mean, it's not the best, but it's still a very, very healthy option that you literally open the can. Here you go. Here's your protein. It's brilliant. Or I've even seen where you can find salmon patties that you would just put on the stovetop or put in the oven. And there you go. It's prepackaged. I love to always have like organic chicken sausage in the freezer. So when I don't have something prepped, I can pull out that protein. I call them emergency meals. You need to have your pantry and your freezer stocked with your emergency meals that if you didn't have time to prep, you didn't have time to plan, it's there. And I always try to think protein and fat first. That is critical.
Hey guys, I know that you're listening and enjoying this episode. We had so much fun talking with this guest. So we want to ask you really quick, if you're listening, will you please download this episode, or you could just subscribe to the podcast and download them regularly. You help us be able to get the good guests and keep going and doing what we're doing by your download and your subscription. So push that button, subscribe.
No matter what age you are, children and adults.
Right. And I love, honestly, I'm a big Costco fan. And part of the reason is because they'll carry so much organic, frozen, prepackaged things that are quick and easy. And when it's just me that needs to eat, I can just pull out some wild caught salmon and, cook it right away, like right from the freezer. And it's quick and easy and it's yummy.
Yeah, I know. One of my favorite emergency meals you can get at Costco. So they have spiralized zucchini that's frozen. That could be your noodle. Then I love the Rayo's organic tomato sauce. It's or it's like a pasta sauce. It's very clean. There's no bad ingredients in there. And then sometimes I'll have like the chicken meatballs or the chicken sausages and cut that up. And literally within 15 minutes, it's ready, it's delicious, it's healthy, it's whole foods, and it was all in the freezer. So having ideas like that, I find is so, so, so powerful.
And they can find some good ideas with you guys at Dr. Pelz's website. Does she have a website that they can go to find some of this information?
Yes, drmindypelz.com. We also, the Fast Like a Girl book is a great resource. She recently added to her menopause reset book. So if you're in that age where you're starting to go into menopausal symptoms, check out the menopause reset. And then I created this was actually years ago. I started an Instagram because I'd have clients be like, what do you eat? Or what do you order? What's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? So I started it really to have for options for my clients. And now it's one of my creative outlooks. I'm not out on there very often, but it's called the Wellness Page. So it's the Wellness, Paige. It's a little play on words. So yes, there I have a lot of options and recipes and ideas there.
I'm going to go to the Instagram for sure because it's going to help me get through the next week.
Yeah, find some fun stuff on there. I get my hemp seeds there, my chia seeds. I get my nut butter there that I love. I always get wild berries. I get some meat there. One of my favorite, another like emergency meal, are the egg bites. They have great egg bites there. You could make your own. I love the convenience of having them in the freezer. I love how they taste. They've got great salad mixes. So I'm a big Costco fan myself.
And tell us about if parents who have teenagers or pubescent kids in their household, talk to us about what they can be doing to support their kids to maybe stabilize things a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
I had a teenage daughter and it was rough.
Yes. And I was a teenager at one point, so I remember it. And now with the youngest brother, I saw my siblings go through that time period. Both my brothers were into like weight training and sports. And so it was like they couldn't eat enough. So my parents constantly had to have food. I mean, the amount of eggs that they would go through was insane. So I find that having healthy options is so important. Some tips that I would give is to have things cut up already. If it's cut up and easy to access, then they're more likely to go towards that. Put that in more plain sight. The maybe not as healthy foods, the more junk foods, keep those maybe a little bit higher in the pantry or somewhere they don't see it right away. And then the education piece is so important. Find what lights up your teenager. Is it sports? Is it the potential of getting into college? Is it their skin health? What is it? And then from there, you can then educate them on how their diet plays a role in that. So for example, we see a lot of acne showing up in puberty in teenagers. Yes, that's normal, that's hormonal, but it doesn't have to be a lot of acne. It doesn't have to be big breakouts. That's a big driver I hear all the time when I work with teenagers. Well, we know that there are two main food groups that drive acne more than other food groups. It's sugar and it's dairy. So if you can educate your child or your teenager on that, give them some alternatives to those foods, have them experiment for a few weeks. If they see their skin clear up, that's motivation in and of itself. They're going to be more strict about it than you're going to be strict to them because they see how it impacts them firsthand. If your teenager is in sports, show them how when you eat, let's say you have protein before you go to practice or before a big game versus if you carb load, which there's a lot of newer thoughts around carb loading and how that may not be the best for long-term energy sustainability during a sport, a game, etc. Or even like the Gatorades. I hate the Gatorades. They're full of sugar. And then the ones that aren't full of sugar, they have artificial sweeteners in there. So can you instead switch to more electrolyte packets in water? But ultimately, you've got to teach them, okay, so if you have some protein, maybe some healthy fat, pay attention to your performance. Versus, okay, let's say they're begging for a Pop-Tart or begging for some sort of sugary, carb-rich food. Okay, go ahead. And then after the game, did you see how your performance was a little different? How did you, and maybe not even that, how did you feel when you were playing? What was your strength like? What was your stamina like? And so getting them to see the difference between when they eat well versus when they don't eat well, that is going to get them to start to want to eat a little bit healthier. And then as a parent, it's your responsibility to have that food accessible for them. Have it in the house, have it ready for them.
And thinking about sodas, we all know sodas are no good, but when your kids want either dairy or sodas, or they're wanting something to drink that has a flavor to it. I love water and I drink a ton of water, but I know some people don't like to drink water. You mentioned electrolyte packets. What are some other good healthy options? Tea?
Yeah, I find that a lot of teenagers don't love tea unless it's got a lot of sugar in it. So you could make tea and then use some of the healthy sweeteners like monk fruit or honey or stevia drops. I also find fruit infused water can be pretty cool. Like it looks cool. And like if you have it floating in your water, it looks fancy having cucumbers in your water or lemons or limes, but it also tastes really, really yummy. Sparkling waters that have no sugar in them, but are naturally flavored, that can be a great option too, especially if they want like the fizz or the bubbles, then doing more of the sparkling water or mineral waters. Mineral waters are so great because most of us, especially teenagers, are very mineral depleted. And we need minerals for our frontal brain. We need minerals for growth and development. So mineral water is very bubbly. It's just, it doesn't have sugar. So can you squeeze lemon or lime in there and maybe some stevia drops? That tastes pretty dang close to a soda. I mean, I was never a huge soda drinker, so I could be very biased with that statement. But a lot of my clients have been able to get off a soda when they have some of those alternatives.
It's really important for parents to know, like, if you can control what your kids are eating early, like you were talking about, not only does it help their health, but it also helps how their brain learns to like food and what it learns to like, and will really guide them as they move forward. And yes, I have a 19-year-old that eats all kinds of, he loves canes, and we just got canes where we live. And so he's been loving that, but he'll eat it and then he'll be like, I can't have that for so many days because I had it 2 days in a row and it's so fatty. I can feel it. I need to, and so you can train your kids so that when they're out on their own and making those choices, that they're going to be paying attention to it. Because like you said, they feel the difference in their bodies and they don't like the way it feels when they get that yucky stuff. We feel like that's going to be so much work, but what you're talking about is really, it's not that much work. And if we do that, there's such a big payoff.
And if it feels overwhelming, then start by just adding in healthy things. Especially for a teenager is so set in their ways at that point, and they're learning how to be independent and they want to make their choices. So instead of saying, no, avoid this, what can you add in that's going to benefit their health or their learning or their behavior, or whatever you're trying to work on? And naturally, if you add more healthy stuff in, the amount of junk food that they eat or other maybe not as healthy foods, that's going to naturally come down once you add in more healthy foods. And then I agree, once they start feeling better, it's more motivating. I was not raised super healthy. My dad was traveling all the time. My mom was home alone often with young kids. And we often did drive-throughs or frozen foods. I mean, I grew up on taquitos and Smileys and Bosco sticks. Yeah. And it wasn't until, I don't even know where the passion started. I was 18 years old and I started learning about nutrition. And I always laugh at this. I thought it was so healthy to make ramen noodles and add vegetables to it. And I was like, wow, it's so healthy because I'm adding vegetables to my ramen noodles. As I started paying attention to how I felt when I ate better, that's what propelled me into the nutrition world. And so I find if you can teach your kids and set an example, then they're more likely to want to make those healthy choices when they see you doing it, but also when they can link, okay, this is how I feel when I eat 6 donuts. This is how I feel when I have a healthy smoothie.
We'll have to follow Shannon and see after her detox how she's feeling.
I'll give updates along the way.
There you go. So talk about a little bit, because it's not just the kids that we're worried about. I know as an educator, when I'm in the building and working with teachers, I see that a lot of teachers are just eating stuff that's on the go. Maybe they don't pack things. They feel so exhausted at the end of the day. They're grading papers. They don't think to pack the night before. And then the morning of, they're running late. And then they don't eat healthy. And I know that impacts them more than they even realize, with not having the patience or the stamina to get through the day. Teachers, educators, special service providers, administrators, you need to hear this. You need to take care of you. Definitely. Yeah. So talk about what they could be doing maybe to create some of those patterns and how to do it quick and easy.
Yeah. I mean, your food, it really controls everything. What you put into your mouth controls how you feel, how you handle your stress, your clarity, your motivation, your drive, your quality of life. I've worked with quite a few teachers, and unfortunately, I would consider a lot of educators and nurses to be 2 of the most burnt out fields. And those 2 fields are the type that you don't know when your bathroom break is always going to be. You don't know necessarily when you're going to get to eat again, because yes, for educators, you might have your lunch break, but what if that lunch break is helping a student? What if that lunch break is helping out another educator? What if it's, oh my gosh, I got to switch the lesson plan this afternoon? What if there's an emergency? So you never know. And this is where the power of intermittent fasting can be incredible for educators. Go to Dr. Mindy's YouTube channel and podcast. I mean, that's where you'll find all the ins and the outs of intermittent fasting. But we find, here's a good example to get you to start thinking about it. We have 2 energy systems in our body that are dictated by what we eat. We have a sugar burning system and we have a fat burning system. And so when we're eating, our blood sugar goes up. That's activating the sugar burning system. When we're in a sugar burning system, depending on how much sugar we eat, and sugar, again, you don't have to necessarily be eating just sugar. Protein can convert to glucose. Carbs convert to glucose. So it's anytime you eat and your blood sugar goes up, you go into that sugar burning. So the more sugar you eat, the more that system is activated. Well, the more that system's activated, we find that most people, they can't focus as well. They tend to get an energy crash once their blood sugar goes up and then it drops. It can affect your cravings, your mood. Once your blood sugar goes up and it goes back down, and your blood sugar has been down for a period of time, you start to activate the fat burning system. And when we're in that fat burning system, we have better mental clarity. We have better energy. We have better focus. Most people find that they have a calmness to them, but they're also happy at the same time. And so this is the beauty of intermittent fasting, is we start to tap into that fat burning system more throughout the day than we are in the sugar burning system. Because if you're an educator, I know you go to school very early. So if you're like, okay, I got to get my breakfast in. So let's say you're eating by 6 o'clock, you're not getting home until late. So maybe you're done eating dinner by 7 or 8. And then your only time to yourself is before bed. So you like to eat in bed because, I mean, how fun is that to have your alone time, your snacks in bed? A lot of people then might eat until they go to bed, wake up and eat right away. They're never getting into that fat burning system where you can get better energy, better clarity, better focus. And so if you were to start to practice intermittent fasting, you would be able to tap into more of that fat burning system where you're going to feel better. Okay, we can't be in fat burning all the time. We have to eat. So as you wisely said, Hollye, when you break your fast, when you have breakfast, doesn't matter necessarily what time of day it's at, we're finding that breakfast being the most important, the meal, that's kind of an older nutrition myth. I believe breakfast, the quality of your breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but it doesn't matter what time it's at. Whether it's 8 a.m. or noon, it's that first meal of the day. What it consists of is way more important than what time it's at. Okay. So if you break that fast with primarily proteins and healthy fats, your blood sugar is going to be stabilized. You're going to have more energy. Protein, it's made out of something called amino acids. Amino acids are what are required for our neurotransmitters. Our neurotransmitters are our dopamine, our serotonin, our feel-good hormones. We also need these amino acids for hormonal development. We need them for even no matter what age you're at, you need amino acids to produce your hormones. So protein is so critical, and it will also keep you satiated. So it can help with your cravings. I always recommend, if you are eating dinner later because you have a busy day, you're not getting home till later, can you maybe push off breakfast? Can you have your coffee? If you do need some sort of substance, some people are finding that they put some healthy fats in their coffee. I don't know if you've ever tried putting like MCT oil, or some people put grass-fed butter. Some people put a little collagen in their coffee. That can kind of be your breakfast. And then when you have your first break or you have lunch, have it be something that you prepped that's primarily protein and healthy fat. So can you pack those egg bites that we had talked about from Costco? Can you plan this is what I used to work in a very busy clinic where I had to meal prep because I was at the clinic all day. So I would, on Sundays, I would take out my 5 containers and put different like platters of food. I didn't necessarily always plan a meal. It was literally like what I was explaining with you. If you pack your child a lunch, can it be some sort of protein, nuts and seeds, healthy fat? Can you put some cut up veggies in there? Maybe if you like salads, take a salad mix, put that in your 5 containers, bake some chicken breasts, bake 5 chicken breasts on a Sunday, season it really well, put those in the containers. I love recommending roasting vegetables. I mean, a lot of people don't like vegetables because they don't know how to prepare them. They don't know how to season them. They don't know how to make them where they're actually palatable. Raw veggies, they really don't taste that great. I'll be honest, and I love nutrition. So that would be an idea. Make a big platter of roasted veggies, put that in with those containers. We find that if you don't prepare, you will fail. And if you don't take the time to prepare earlier, we find that like at the end of the day, let's say you haven't prepared dinner, thought about dinner earlier in the day, you have so much decision fatigue by the end of the day that you have to prioritize thinking about your food earlier in the day when you have more energy for it. Otherwise, it's easy to go for fast food or the packaged food at home. So, I mean, I'm biased because I love nutrition. I feel the power of it, but that's all I think about. I think about what is my breakfast going to be like? What's my lunch and what's my dinner? Because if you don't prepare, you will fail.
I know that's true. Because when I get to the end of the week and I haven't had a chance to like make sure that I went through my refrigerator and I have the things I need, I'm more likely to eat the quick and easy stuff that isn't so healthy for me. So absolutely prepare. And it took me maybe 3 or 4 days to get used to fasting and doing that intermittent fasting. And I really, really like it. I do put heavy cream in my coffee in the morning because I like the creaminess of it. I've tried some different fats, but that's what I kind of fell on, and I really enjoy it, but it's great. And it took me a while to get used to not sweetening it, but I did get used to it, and it's good.
It actually, the heavy cream too, it's going to help stabilize your blood sugar. It's going to give you the healthy fats for your brain. So I think that's great. The other thing too, with having some people, when they have coffee without food, they get a cortisol spike. And cortisol is a stress hormone. And so what we find is that when you put some healthy fat in your coffee, that blunts that cortisol spike because you're not just consuming caffeine on an empty stomach. You have some healthy fat. So what Dr. Mindy teaches, a good way to know if you get a cortisol spike from your coffee would be you have to test your blood sugar before and after consuming the coffee. So a cortisol spike will raise your blood sugar even if you didn't eat food. So even though coffee has no calories, you can still get a blood sugar spike because the caffeine could spike your cortisol. So what we recommend is you get, we like the Keto Mojo, but most drugstores will have a glucose monitor that you can buy on your own. And you do have to prick your finger, but you would test your blood sugar right before you have coffee. And then you test it about 30 minutes after. If your blood sugar goes higher than 10 points, then you got a cortisol spike from it. And technically that would kind of pull you out of your intermittent fast. So it's a good thing if you are going to try your intermittent fasting, you might want to invest in a tool like that if you want to have your coffee and then fast through the morning so you can see what that coffee is doing to your blood sugar.
That is great advice because people always wonder like what I'm eating.
I have a question. Would tea do the same thing if it has caffeine in it?
It can. Now, the caffeine content in tea is a lot smaller than the caffeine content in coffee. However, some of us are caffeine sensitive, so it would be worth testing.
Yeah.
And then if it does spike, then put some MCT oil or heavy cream. I know that sounds kind of weird in tea, or maybe even some full fat coconut milk. That might blunt that response. And coconut milk is really good in tea. I don't know about heavy cream. I've never tried that in tea personally.
I guess it would be kind of like having milk and tea.
Yeah, that's a good point.
For a lot of teachers, that's something that you can do in the morning to hold you over if you're going to wait a little bit longer.
It's perfect because you can have your coffee. I mean, coffee doesn't take all that long in the morning. I would rather you make it at home than stopping. One, you save money, but two, you can control what goes in the coffee a little bit better. But that would be your breakfast. And then you do maybe the night before have a few things packed for when you do get to school.
And if you don't have a place to refrigerate, you were talking about trail mixes, nuts. I love when I get a sweet tooth at night, there's a couple brands and I'm trying to remember, I think one is called Rind. It takes freeze-dried coconut flakes, but they coat it with cocoa powder, but it doesn't have sugar. But together with the coconut, it gives a little sweet, but oh my gosh, and it's fibrous. So I can eat those instead of having like candy or something. And it really does satiate that sweet tooth.
That's amazing. Do you find that affects your sleep at all? I'm just curious because there is a little caffeine in cocoa.
That's true.
If I have dark chocolate too late, I'm like, a little wired before bed.
See, and I could seriously drink espresso and go right to bed. I am a person with ADHD. And so for me, caffeine doesn't really perk me up. It kind of stabilizes me or makes me sleepy.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Is it? I don't know. Everybody's different, right? Everybody is different.
Yes, everybody. It's so true. And even with kind of going back to if you have a picky teenager and trying to teach them healthy ways, you have to just stay patient with them. And it may seem like you're trying this food and that food and that food. You will eventually find some healthy foods. And it's okay if you have to keep going back to those foods, but don't give up on it. The other thing that's interesting is you guys may have heard it. It takes about 15 times to acquire a taste to a new food for a lot of kids. So even just having them try one little bite, that's one of those 15 times before they learn to acquire that taste. So don't give up, because each kid, each teenager is different, and you will find healthy options for them. It just takes experimenting, and it takes patience.
And for adults too, if you are an adult that maybe was raised with convenience foods or fast foods, and you really want to make that change, be patient with yourself. Give yourself those 15 times to start making that shift, for sure.
Yeah. And then try different ways of preparing it. So maybe you don't like broccoli that's steamed, but mashed broccoli can be a very lovely side dish. Yeah. So what I love to do is, and I actually personally, I don't digest broccoli the best unless I puree it. So I will put steamed broccoli in my food processor and puree it so it turns into like a broccoli mash. I drizzle some extra virgin olive oil, some sea salt, pepper, and garlic powder over it. And it is such an amazing addition to the side, like instead of mashed potatoes almost. Digestion can tolerate that. And then it tastes a lot better than steamed broccoli, in my opinion. So get creative with it. Have fun with it.
And milk for kids, and the school wants everybody to have milk. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
You just twitched when she said that. You're like,
yeah. Milk it can be so inflammatory for us. Kids and adults. I mean, cow's milk is so much different. Consuming that is so much different than consuming breast milk. And the other problem too is that I don't know how much you've learned about raw milk versus pasteurized milk. There's many states in this country that that legally can't sell raw milk. So like my state is one of them. It's very hard to find raw milk. The pasteurized milk, it's heated at such high temperatures, and that's to prevent listeria and other bacterial growths, which is great. However, that kills off everything. It kills off the naturally occurring enzymes that the human body needs to actually break down that milk sugar. So we also kill off the beneficial microbes. There's beneficial bacteria that keep our immune system strong, that help with our gut health. When it's pasteurized and so highly treated, that kills all that off. So you're left with, it's not a living food anymore. It's so processed. That also, when we can't break it down properly, that creates a big inflammatory reaction in the body. We also know that most milk has added growth hormones. Yes. So speaking of puberty at an early age, we're finding that it's the addition of hormones in our diet that is messing with our hormones. So milk it really is not as healthy as it's touted.
People who are choosing almond milk or soy milk instead.
Yeah. I mean,
I prefer coconut milk, but I also like to get like the Thai coconut milk, like that's just not like like the ones in the freezer section. That's not what I go for. Is that okay?
Yeah, you got to look at the preservatives. So I really like, is it Native Forest? It's like full fat coconut milk with cream. Yes. And what I like to do is I'll take like a lemonade pitcher, and I will take that full fat of coconut milk with the cream. There's a little bit of liquid in there. I'll dilute it. So I'll add some filtered water with that, maybe a little bit of vanilla extract to give it more of a vanilla flavor, and then mix that up really well and put that in the fridge, because the only ingredient besides coconut in that is guar. Guar, it's not a gum. It's an approved preservative. So I don't use a lot of non-dairy milks. I just don't really, there's nothing I really consume that would need it. But that's what I used to do when I did a lot of like smoothies. I used to do, now I've learned how to make a smoothie without needing that. But that's what I used to do when I loved my smoothies with coconut milk. So yeah, the almond milk, there's just so many preservatives in most of those cartons. A lot of them are so sweetened with sugar. I mean, oat milk, that's such a popular thing now, full of sugar. Even if there's not a lot of added sugar, because oats are higher in carbs, you do get an insulin response from that. And then the soy milk, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion, especially with, we talked about genetically modified foods. Soy is one of those genetically modified foods. And so you're getting not only glyphosate that's sprayed on the soybeans, however, soy is what we call a phytoestrogen. And a phytoestrogen will plug into the same receptor sites as our estrogen does. It actually competes for that. And so consuming a lot of soy, especially when you're going through puberty, can actually impact your hormone levels in a detrimental way.
Oh, I hear you. Well, that is such good information. And I hope that whether you're a parent thinking about how to fuel your kid's body, if you're a student in college or in higher education and you're listening and you're hearing some of this and you're an athlete or you want to really help your skin or just your weight, whatever your motivation is, listen to these things, go to these websites. I highly recommend her website as well as her books because I have found them so helpful. I originally found her on Diary of a CEO podcast and watched, it's like a 2-hour episode on YouTube. I broke it up. I watched half in the morning and half in the evening, but I couldn't wait to get back and keep watching because she really talks about environmental toxins as well and those impacts. And it was just so informative and not overweight to you to take on emotionally, right? But like just enlightening. And she gives some of those great suggestions. And that's how I found you. So you never know, people might want to check it out. I loved it. I love her book, Fast Like a Girl. It's been really good. And it's teaching me a lot. Hopefully in a few more months when I get all through with the book, I'll be really on a great path with my eating because I think it helped. I like to feel good. And so it's nice to feel good. And her book is really great to help. So if people need resources, those are great resources to start.
Yes, she's got a great YouTube channel too. So a lot of her videos are shorter. So I find
yes, that was just one.
We're busy. Yeah, we need those shorter videos. So she's got lots of great ideas. Fast Like a Girl has a meal plan. It's got superfoods in there for your hormones. It's got different recipe ideas. It has different foods that support your hormones. So I love what you said about you want to eat well because you want to feel well. That's what keeps me going in this direction of healthy living. It's, of course I love donuts and I love pizza time to time, but do I feel well when I eat them? No. So I'll have it here and there, but 90% of the time I'm making decisions that I know are going to fuel me because if I don't feel well, then what is there to life? You really have nothing without your health. So it's such an important thing. And until you have felt better, you just don't get it. So you have to almost just trust, go through the process. Shannon, you can do it 2 weeks. And then that's going to be your motivation to stay there.
Yeah. And when you do fall off the wagon and eat something icky, you feel icky.
You do.
It helps motivate.
That's where intermittent fasting can be helpful. I find that after holidays or after my birthday or parties or whatever it may be, throw in a longer intermittent fast the next day, your gut will repair better. You'll start to get rid of any of that stored sugar from over consuming carbs or sugars. And it does give your body a break. A lot of people find that they actually get more energy when they fast too. But it's okay to fall off the wagon. It's just, you got to get back on.
I think I've got it. I think I'm good for the next, week. So, and I'm already feeling benefits. So it feels really good.
What have you noticed?
I think I'm sleeping a little bit better. Cravings have gone down, but I've been also working out a little more. So that's good. So I've changed a few things.
In Dr. Pelz's book, what I think is really helpful for people at all different ages is she talks about how to eat with your cycle as a woman. And that's so different from men. They have cycles. Men, you have cycles, but it's just really different than ours. But she talks about when to eat a lot of protein and when to eat a lot, more carbs and how to follow that and how it will impact how you feel, how, all those things, your PMS, all that stuff. And I think that is super powerful. I think most women can relate to that, especially young girls. And if you're a mom of a young girl who's going through puberty or has been through puberty, and you're finding that she's really struggling with cramps or, moodiness, sleep, whatever, it can be so helpful. And then she also talks about how you can really impact your immune system with certain types of fasting. So it's really interesting. People might want to check it out. It's definitely a book worth having. I found mine on Amazon and ordered it. I had it in 2 days. So if you're really interested, go get it.
And I will say it's for men and women. The title may dissuade some men from picking it up. However, what we're finding, a lot of men are reaching out and they are quite impressed because they're learning so much about the women in their lives. They're learning about their daughters, their spouses, their sisters, their mothers. And so there's great information for anyone. There's great food suggestions in there for anyone. There's recipes in there for anyone. But to learn about the women in your life, even we talk a lot about on our platforms, how to talk to your teenager according to their cycle. So if you have someone, say they're maybe not doing well in school and you need to have a hard conversation with them, don't do it right before their cycle is about to start. They're going to be more introverted. They're not going to be as receptive. They're going to be more sensitive. Whereas if they are closer to ovulation, that woman will naturally have more testosterone. She will have the most estrogen that she will have all cycle, and she'll have a little bit of progesterone. So estrogen keeps you open and social. Progesterone keeps you calm, and testosterone keeps you very confident and motivated. Okay. Women should feel their absolute best at ovulation. So if you have to have a hard discussion with your teenager, try to see when their ovulation is and have it at that point, because they're going to be more receptive and you're going to have a much better conversation than if you were to try a day before their cycle is about to start. Same with your spouse.
That's such good advice, though. Like if men knew some of those things, I think it would revolutionize their experience.
Yes. Exactly. So if men pick up that book, you can start to learn about that, the languaging, and have those conversations. Like my husband, he actually knows before I do when I'm about to get my period, because he can just pick up on those subtle changes about how I communicate or how open I am. And it's amazing because I find that it's helped prevent a lot of arguments if he knows I'm at a certain point. And so he doesn't get defensive if I get more snappy, because he's like, oh, she's about to get her period. It's her hormones.
Honestly, there's so many ways you could use that information. And as a teacher and educator, it could be very powerful. As an administrator or a leader in a company, it could be really powerful to think about some of those things and be looking for some of those cues to guide you on when you make those choices to have conversations or push things, or even like letting a person work from home during certain time periods. So it could be so interesting. I think there's a lot to be learned and tapped into there.
Yeah. And if you're an educator who still has a regular menstrual cycle, just know that the 5 to 7 days before your cycle starts, you need to be having a schedule that's not so intensive. You need to be prioritizing your sleep. You should not be pushing it with exercise. You do need a little bit more carbs at this time. And so if you can plan your schedule around that at all. I'm not a teacher, so I don't know. I know that you have to have like conferences at certain times, and there's things that are in the curriculum that you can't avoid, but can you change your lesson plans where maybe it's something a little bit easier right before your cycle starts? Or if you know that there's some big thing you have going on and your cycle starts, go to bed a little bit earlier, knowing you need more sleep to help you have better brain function that next day. So the book is, you can plan this to your lifestyle, no matter what type of career you have. Dr. Mindy even works with high achieving celebrities and athletes, and she has educated them on how here's when you should perform, here's when you should rest, and scheduling their tours based on their cycle. It's where we want to see the world going, because it is such a critical piece to your performance, how you feel, and so you don't burn out. We see so many women that are burnt out, and we can prevent that if we knew how to balance our lifestyle with our hormones.
Thank you so much, Paige, for having this conversation with us today. I think it was really interesting and hopefully provided everyone listening with some little tips and tricks and things that they should be paying attention to.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was great. Reach out to Dr. Mindy's platform with any questions. Like I said, I do offer a lot of consultations. So if you ever wanted to do a nutrition consultation or general health, we do offer those services.
So we've been starting to ask a question to all of our guests before they leave. Right off the top of your head, what would you say? What do you think is the why behind education in this country? Why are we trying to educate students? What do we want to get from that? Why?
That's a great question. I mean, our kids are our future. They really are. They should be the priority. And that starts with education. Public schools, that's not just a place to learn. That is a place to build relationships, to learn social skills, to learn discipline. For some, that might be the only place they can actually have fun and have play and have laughter. For some, that might be the only time they get to eat. I find that education and going to school is so critical, not just for learning, but for becoming a better human. And so by being able to go to school and have an education, that's going to allow that child to fulfill their purpose in life. It's where it all starts.
That was a great answer.
I know. I love that answer. Have a super great day. Thank you. I hope that our paths cross again. And everybody, go check out Paige's Instagram and look below in the notes, and we'll have all those links.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to have this conversation. And yeah, we'll chat again soon.
What a coincidence that we started this interview, that we had scheduled this interview, and you just started your detox.
I did. On Monday, I started, and now this is Friday. So 5 days in, and it's mostly like a sugar detox and low carbs. So it's exactly kind of what she was talking about. But yeah, what a coincidence. One of the biggest problems that I've always had is the whole prepping piece. Making a plan for the week, even for the day. She's exactly right when she said, if you don't have a plan for your meal early in the day, then you're going to be too tired and maybe make the worst choice you can.
All of us, whether we're an administrator or a parent or a college student, this is good stuff for you. You can check it out and go to the websites. And again, we'll have the notes below.
Yeah, I think we'll all benefit from it.
I hope you guys liked it. If you have ideas for us, please message us through wherever you're listening to your podcast. You can leave us a message. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave us a message. You can go to our website at e2now.com.
Yes. That sounds right.
All right, guys. Together, we can do better.
Together, we can do better.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
It takes all of us to turn things around. This is Education RX.
This is Education RX.